Welcome back to the Adam Schefter podcast. We're coming to you from Palm Beach, Florida, site of the league meetings that wrapped up on Tuesday. It's Wednesday morning as we tape this. The NFL draft is now just over 3 weeks away, and there's plenty of draft gossip to get to, and we will be joined by the co-host of the Pat McAfee Show, my friend, my colleague, Ty Schmit, for the weekly six-pack.
Thank you very much, Shefty. Good to see you as always. I'll tell you what, the weather and the ambiance and environment down at the league meetings looks pretty awesome. I'm pretty envious of you. The weather is absolutely terrible here in Indianapolis. Tornado warnings, after the last several days. Let's get right into topic number one. Arguably the most talked about thing from the league meetings this year, everything with the Tush push. There were reports coming out that the discussions got pretty contentious between teams who wanted to ban it, teams who didn't want to ban it, and in the end, they didn't have enough votes, and it ended up getting tabled until May. What does that mean? The fact that it did get tabled and it's not going to be voted upon here, what does that mean for the Tush push moving forward?
Ty, where we're at is here. Essentially, I would not have thought, others would not have thought, that the Tush push would get enough support that it would be tabled at the league meeting in March and April to be discussed further at the next league spring meeting in May in Minneapolis. But I think if we go and we parse through what the NFL commissioner, Roger Goodell, told reporters at his post-league meeting press conference, I think it became pretty apparent that he and others want the Tush push out of the game. Let's look at what Roger Goodell said. He said, I think there are safety issues being considered with the Tush push. We have very little data, but we see the potential risk. It makes a lot of sense to go back to the old rule prohibiting pulling or pushing ball carriers. Those are Roger Goodell's words. And if we look at those words, he says, we have very little data, but we see the potential risk. It makes a lot of sense to go back to the old rule when you couldn't push ball carriers. So what he's saying there is there are 16 votes that they've gotten, 16 teams willing to overturn the Tush push and have it banned. The league needs 24 votes. And Roger Goodell is a master at getting the votes he needs for the issues he wants. And in this particular case, they couldn't get to 24 votes at the league meeting in Palm Beach. But rest be assured, they're going to be working to get those 24 votes before the May meeting in Minneapolis. And I believe ultimately they will get them. And they'll get them because, as the commissioner said, there's not a lot of data to support the injury risk now. But I was with a team on Tuesday at lunch. They don't have a horse in the race. And they said that they believe that it's the type of play, because it hasn't been run that much, that there would be an increased risk of injury. And they're trying to get out in front of it. And they're trying to be proactive rather than reactive and stop it before it happens. Now, the Eagles have felt like they have support from a lot of different corners. They have the former offensive coordinator, who's now the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Kellen Moore. They have the former offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, who's now the head coach of your Indianapolis Colts. They have the former defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, who's now the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And they believe that these men are head coaches today in part because of the success of the Tush push. So it will be hard for those three individuals to go against something that's so important to the Eagles. But when Roger Goodell and the league want something, they're going to find a way to get there. And I believe in the end, by the time the May meeting in Minneapolis rolls around, they're going to find the 8 votes they need, come hell or high water, to get this issue banned, in part because they don't believe it's a safe play, and in part because nobody says this, but there were people that were whispering about it at the league meetings. They feel like it's a boring play. It's a rugby football scrum play. It's not very attractive to watch. It slowed down the NFC Championship game when Frankie Luvo was jumping over the line. The commissioner doesn't want it in the game, we believe. Many people don't want it in the game. The Eagles have mastered it. And it just seems like right now there are enough convergent views, enough opposition, especially from the commissioner, that we may have seen the last of the Tush Push. Rest in peace.
Yeah, I don't have the stats on me, but it seems like anytime this happens at the league meetings where they have something that they're voting on and it doesn't just get shot down, it gets tabled. That is essentially like, hey, guess what? This is just a matter of time until the commissioner gets the votes and kind of has to politic and handshake a little bit more until it's ultimately, because if that wasn't the case, then it would have got voted down and we wouldn't be talking about it today, correct?
Well, and I've seen cases where coaches were like, yeah, this isn't going to pass. And they go out to play golf at the league meeting and they come back from being outside on the greens and whatnot, and the rules passed because the league wanted it to pass. It just feels like one of those again. And it just feels like they're going to get this play banned. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, and I think you could kind of read the tea leaves and see that's where it was trending as we got closer. I think going into the league meetings, I was kind of thinking like, well, there's no way this thing's going to get banned. It kind of just sounds like sour grapes because the Eagles are so good at it and very few other teams can do it successfully. But then as the days have kind of dragged on here, it's kind of like, oh, okay, they absolutely do want this out of the game in part because of the player safety stuff. And then in part, like you mentioned, I think just the optics of it. It's like, hey, we play football. This isn't rugby.
And the fact of where we're even at, like, I would not have thought we would have been in this spot today where the issue's tabled. It's tabled. It wasn't even voted down. It's still out there, and it's got increasing support, and it's a hotly contested subject. I'm just telling you, we see where this is going.
Yeah, so that'll be something to keep an eye on come May. But like you mentioned, I think we all know where this is headed. Let's move on to topic number 2 of this week's Six Pack Shefty. What was one of the other, really big but less talked about rule changes that happened this week? Because it does seem like, although we got a couple, the tush push kind of stole all of the spotlight.
I really thought what was very interesting was that they are working to get rid of the chain gang, something that's been a part of the sport since its inception. And here we are in 2025, and we get these guys walking out on the field with the chain gang and measuring for a first down. And now, very 2025, like in a partnership with Sony's Hawkeye technology, they're going to use digital cameras, 8K cameras, to optically track the ball's position and have the use of the league nerve center in the league office to use as an alternative to walking the chains out to manually measure whether the ball spot has gained the first down. And so they're going to use the cameras here to help determine whether there's a first down. Now, they worked with this in the preseason last year, and it obviously worked well enough, they felt, to install it in the regular season. So now we're going to have the Hawkeye technology as the new primary method for measuring the line to gain. So we'll see how this works out. I look forward to the time when they get the chip in the ball so that we know exactly where the ball was and we can place it on the field. And so now we've got the chip in the ball and we've got the Sony Hawkeye technology to optically track the ball's position. And we're living in the times that we're in, rather than with a chain gang that I think of out of Ohio where they invented football, tracking the ball. And it's very 2025. But to me, welcome to 2025, Ty. It's about time that we've got up to speed here, where the league is so advanced and sophisticated on so many things. We can stream Christmas Day games internationally on Netflix on Christmas Day, and yet we can't figure out exactly where the ball is being spotted and how far it went for a first down.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, this is a long time coming. Obviously, I think a lot of people have been saying that for a while. Like, I get the nostalgia part of it with the chain gang, but it's like, what are we doing here? And then not to mention that a lot of times the actual chain gang themselves, I feel like, are older guys who, and we get at least one or two every year, a player going into one of these guys on the chain gang, and they get an absolutely gruesome injury. It's like they don't need to be there anymore. I am interested to see about the Hawkeye stuff though, because at face value, obviously it's a unbelievable idea. It's what everyone wanted last
Yeah.
year. But I do remember the amount of time it was taking to actually come to a decision. Like, wasn't that the whole purpose of it? Is like, hey, we have the
Yeah.
Hawkeye, very similar to tennis. It's like, a ball gets called out, bing, bang, boom. Nope, that was in. We move on. So, first downs and things of that nature, it's easy to just do it right away. But I remember in like a Giants preseason game, I think it took them like 5 to 7 minutes to finally come up with, okay, yep, that was a first down. So it's like, is it going to take more time? Like you said, obviously they like enough of what they've seen that they're going to institute it in the regular season.
Well, the league believes, based on its release, that the process will take 30 seconds or so, and it'll save about 40 seconds off the manual chain measurement. And the chain system will remain on the field in a secondary capacity. And the initial ball placement will still be in the hands of the on-field referees. But obviously, once it's spotted, and here's another bonus to this whole thing, replay assist from New York will confirm the accuracy of the spot. So we've got it being spotted with cameras. We've got the people in the New York Nerve Center in replay assist helping out. And that should hopefully avoid errors in the future.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, 40 seconds each time, you add that over the course of a game, like where that's huge. So hopefully that is a little bit more successful, because I really do think, I mean, that can really expedite a lot of the slow parts of the game that kind of drives people insane. So that'll be something to watch out for as the season gets closer and as we progress through the season. You just mentioned it there, Shefty. Let's move on to topic number 3. What do you make of Netflix doing 2 more Christmas Day games for the NFL this year? I mean, obviously, I think that's a no-brainer, but what do you make of that whole situation?
Well, this is just a continuation of the league's partnership with Netflix. And you can see that it worked on Christmas Day last year, so much so that they're going to do it again this year. So much so that as we continue to work towards an 18-game season, that does feel inevitable, even as others have said. Once they get to the 18-game season, we talked about it on this podcast before, that will then free up the league to go sell, in my mind, a 16-game international package to somebody like Netflix. And so there'll be a different international game each week. And I don't know, what's that international package worth? If ESPN is paying, I don't even know what the number is, $1.5 billion a year for Monday Night Football, I'm not terribly far off, maybe a couple $100 million. But if ESPN's paying roughly 1.5, maybe it's 1.8, I don't even know the number, like I said. But what would an international package be worth to Netflix? $2 billion a year? I'm throwing out a number. I don't know. $2 billion. Let's call it that.
Probably more.
Okay, it might be. But the point is, there is a whole huge new revenue stream coming in once they go to 18 games, once they shave off a separate package, once they give each of these teams an international game. And Netflix and the NFL already have formed a strong, impressive partnership. Netflix is doing tremendous content. It will continue to do tremendous content. The NFL is beloved. It's a marriage in my mind that right now feels like it's waiting to happen. So the Christmas Day games on Netflix, these are continued trial runs for the network as Netflix continues to get ready, in my mind, for that bigger international package that's going to be coming. But yes, we're going to get a triple header on Christmas Day, 2 Netflix games this year, followed by an Amazon Thursday night game. So 3 more games on Christmas Day and night for the NFL as the NFL continues to try to step on the NBA on Christmas Day and night. And to me, it's just a continuing effort as the league and Netflix work together towards a partnership of an international game package that is coming along with the 18-game regular season schedule. Because I know the NFL Players Association will have a say on it. But here's the question that you would ask every player, and we know what the answer would be. Would you rather play 17 games with one bye or 18 games with two buys and more money? Oh, one extra game for an extra bye week and more money? Sign me up. Ty, let's be honest. We know what's coming. An 18-game schedule's coming. The international package is coming. More money's coming. Netflix is a partner's coming. It's all happening, and it's evidenced by that 3-game Christmas Day package, 2 of the games being on Netflix.
Without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, I think everything there is kind of, I mean, once they went to 17 games, the amount of people who said, like, okay, well, 18's next, like they're going to go until, because it just makes more sense with the added bye week and all that kind of stuff. Because Christmas falls on a Thursday this year, and with Amazon having the Thursday night game, I think everything you said about the international package with Netflix, obviously that makes complete sense. I think that's why Netflix is such a, intriguing and attractive partner for the NFL. Do you think, though, after this year with the 2 games, Christmas isn't going to fall on a Thursday for a while, that Netflix will add a 3rd game just to kind of stake the claim, like, hey, we own Christmas now? Because it was kind of weird last year with, you had those first 2 games and then the second game ends at, 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and it just kind of feels like, okay, well, here we go. Like, there should be a night game now, and there's not. I wonder if Netflix after this year is like, you know what, let's top it off. We want to just own Christmas in the United States.
Sure. By the way, they can afford it.
Yeah.
Right? So whatever they want to do, and whatever the league and Netflix believe is the right thing, that's what's going to happen, Ty.
Yep, I think you're right, and I think everyone can see that that's coming. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. It's awesome that we have 3 games on Christmas this year. I'm very, very excited about that. Let's move on to topic number 4 of this week's Six Pack.
Merry Christmas, Ty. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you as well.
Yeah.
Little early Christmas present. Let's move on to topic number 4 of this week's Six Pack, Shefty. In your opinion, what is the biggest storyline going in to this draft? I mean, it's crazy to think, but we're what, less than 3 weeks out, about 3 weeks out from the draft.
Yep.
It's right around the corner.
Wow, that is incredible, right? 3 weeks away. And to me, it just feels like Tennessee is increasingly locked in on Cam Ward at number 1. And I know they'll listen to offers. Right now, barring some blockbuster offer, I'm expecting the Titans to stay at number 1 and take Cam Ward, and we'll see how this works out here in the next few weeks. But that now leads to the question, okay, where is Shedeur Sanders going? That, to me, now looms as the most intriguing, interesting question heading into the NFL draft in Green Bay, because we do believe that Cam Ward will wind up going number 1. And it certainly feels like the Cleveland Browns are inclined to look elsewhere aside from quarterback. And it's starting to feel like the New York Giants at number 3 are starting to look elsewhere other than quarterback. So if the Browns don't take Shedeur Sanders at 2, and if the Giants don't take Shedeur Sanders at 3, and that is the feel that I'm getting recently, where is Shedeur Sanders going? And I think the 2 spots that you look at today, 3 weeks out, as we tape this, and this is a fluid process and it changes. But today, 3 weeks out, I'm looking at the New Orleans Saints at number 9 and the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 21, who never, ever would have thought that Shedeur ever would slide to them. And he probably still won't. But there was a time where we said Aaron Rodgers wouldn't slide to 23. He was going to go number 1, and he wound up sliding on draft day all the way to number 23. And that's why, to me, this looms as the most interesting question. Is Shedeur going to get past 2 and 3? My guess today would be yes. How far is he going to slide then? New Orleans, I think, has the real possibility of facing a very interesting decision. He would make sense there. I could totally see that being the pick. If they pass, where is Shedeur Sanders going? And It's going to create a lot of drama on draft night. And to me, that is the question that hangs over this draft. And I can tell you, like, there's always a theme. There's always a question. Last year it was the 6 quarterbacks, the 2 coming up, Penix going number 8. That seemed to be the focus, the main storyline of the 2024 NFL draft in Detroit. And it just feels like it's always about the quarterbacks. And there doesn't seem to be much drama and suspense surrounding Cam Ward, but there sure seems to be some intrigue and drama and suspense surrounding Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make. I feel like one morning I wake up and I think he's going to Cleveland. And then by noon that day, it's like, you know what? I think he's maybe going to go to the Giants at 3. New Orleans, like you said, has made a little bit more sense. If he does get past New Orleans, do you think a team like Pittsburgh would maybe be inclined to trade up to grab him? Or do you think if he gets past New Orleans, then we are looking at like an actual free fall because there aren't going to be too many teams in that cluster that need a quarterback?
I was of the mind that Pittsburgh was not taking a quarterback in round 1. And I think the only quarterback that they would consider, me reading between the lines, would be Shedeur. But I can't imagine he's going to slide to 21. So would Pittsburgh be willing to trade up at a certain point to go get Shedeur Sanders if he gets past those other spots? And you're right. The winds of change blow in different directions every day. But 3 weeks out, the wins I'm getting is Shedeur's going to blow past the Browns at 2, blow past the Giants at 3. And now, again, where's he going? I don't think he's going to go to the Raiders at 6. Just a guess. I don't know that, but that's my guess. They just traded a 3rd-round pick for Geno. They got a lot of holes to fill. I don't know if they're going to pass up all these people like that. That seems to me to be a bit of a stretch. Don't think the Jets, who just gave Justin Fields $20 million, are going to go do that either. And so now you start to say, okay, would the Saints take him at 9? Would the Steelers trade up from where they're spot? So we'll see how that all plays out here. But that's why I said that's the most intriguing question in this draft. Right now, past 2, past 3. Let's see about 9.
Obviously, that would be terrible for Shedeur, and your heart would go out to him.
That wouldn't be terrible. That wouldn't be no. And I've had this conversation.
I mean, just
I've had this conversation with you. It's not about the number you go. It's not about where you go in the draft. It's about where you go as a city, where you go as an organization.
That is true, because if you go to Cleveland, who knows what happens. I'm just thinking monetarily, because you're going in thinking you're going to make X amount. But again, if you go to a good team and go to the playoffs several times and become, the cornerstone starting quarterback there, then you're right. I mean, look at Rodgers again. It doesn't matter. You go 23 to the Packers, it's the right spot. You end up winning a Super Bowl and you become the highest paid, player in the history of the league. So you're right. You're right.
I've had this conversation with many players over time that I've met at the combine, that I've had on this podcast, whatever it may be. I always say to them, like, don't get worked up about how much money you made or lost on the first night. It's not about where you go in the draft. You are so much better off going 21 to a great organization than you are number 3 to a not great organization where all of a sudden you're not going to get to that second contract. The real money is the second contract. So you want to be put in the best possible spot with the best possible support, with the best possible coaching to become the best possible player, to get the best possible contract when you hit your second deal. That's what it's about for these players, to me.
No, without a doubt. And I think that is something that's maybe changed a little bit with how the QB contracts are now. In the old CBA, it was like you wanted to go 1 because you were making all that guaranteed money up front. But you're right. Now it's like if you play well enough through your first contract, you're getting anywhere from 50 to who knows when a guy like Shedeur would sign his second contract. He could be making $70 million a year.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. Obviously your pride maybe takes a little bit of a hit, not going, in the...
Of course, and it's in the moment.
Right.
It's in the moment. It feels big, but again, it's not about where you go in the draft. It's about where you go as an organization.
Sure. Do we know, is he going to be in Green Bay at the draft? That's the only other thing I think of is, like a Will Levis situation where you're expecting, hey, I'm going to go top 5. So you go there and you sit in the green room and you got all the cameras on you And then as the slide kind of starts, then you got basically all of America kind of looking at you like, pitying you or making fun of you or whatever the case may be. That's the only, part I think about, like, oh man, that would really suck for him.
As we tape this Wednesday, April 2nd, we have not yet heard who's being invited and who's not. It'll be interesting to see if he's there. I would think he would be invited, but let's wait and see the league's list of invitees.
Okay. And like you said, we're 3 weeks away. I mean, tomorrow it could be like, actually the Browns, they're back in. They're in love with Shedeur and they're going to take him at number 2. Like you said, it kind of seems from what you're hearing that that's not going to be the case right now at 2 or 3, but again, this stuff is so fickle, so who knows what we're going to be talking about next week. Let's move on to topic number 5 of this week's Six Pack, away from kind of the biggest storyline or, the storyline with the most inherent drama. Everyone loves the little nuggets that we get about people in the draft that we know nothing about. Have you heard anything, like what do you think the funniest or most interesting story about this draft is?
Well, I thought it was great. The Raiders general manager, John Spytek, was on Sirius, and he told a story about his son, Jack, who's 10 years old. And before we go into Jack's feelings, we think back to last year, the Giants general manager, Joe Schoen's son, he wanted his father to trade up for Jaden Daniels. That was the quarterback that we wanted. We saw that on Hard Knocks. And Joe Schoen's son knew exactly what he was talking about. He was on Jaden Daniels. Well, now we've got 10-year-old Jack Spytek telling his father, the Raiders general manager, John Spytek, that he wants, at pick number 6, running back Ashton Genty. And as John Spytek said on Sirius, basically, if they don't pick Ashton Genty, he's threatening to walk out on his family and find another family. He's also told Mark Davis, the Raiders owner, that if his dad doesn't take Ashton Genty, he's not doing the job the right way. So we've got 10-year-old Jack Spytek basically pounding the mat, pounding the table, stepping out there for Ashton Genty. We know who he wants, okay? And I will say that that's going to be a player the Raiders have to consider because they're going to have to keep 10-year-old Jack Spytek in the Spytek family or they're going to have a big problem here, Ty.
Yeah, I mean, I think in years past, people would scoff at this. Hey, this is just a funny story. The amount of like NCAA football that these kids play, like his son probably knows more about this draft class, given what his dad does and everything, than any other 10-year-old on the face of the earth. I would venture to guess. Like this kid probably knows these prospects inside and out. And I think after last year, you're right. We see that on Hard Knocks. It's like Joe Schoen's son hit the nail on the head. It's like, hey, Dad, you only get one opportunity to do this. Like, you might not get, we might not be in this situation ever again. Take Jaden Daniels. Well, a year later, that kid looks like an absolute genius. So maybe there is something to that. I mean, kids typically speak without filter, and they'll kind of tell you how it is and how they think it should be. And so who knows? Maybe Ashton Genty is the move for the Raiders.
Hey, I'm going to tell you a story that I just thought of that I didn't realize I was going to tell today. But I remember being in 8th grade in Mr. Flannery's English class, and I had a huge Giants fan in my class, Joe Giglio. And I used to love the draft as a kid. I would read Mel Kiper's draft guides from the time they came out in 1978. I was 12 years old. Like that was my school reading, and I would study up on the draft. And I had a kid in my class. Why I would remember this to this day, but I do. Joe Giglio, huge Giants fan. And Joe knew that I just studied the draft. And he's like, tell me who the New York Giants are taking this year. And I'm like, they're going to wind up taking this unbelievable linebacker from North Carolina, Lawrence Taylor. And he's like, a linebacker? We already have Harry Carsons. We already have Gary Reasons. I'm like, Joe, I'm just telling you, you can't bypass the chance to take Lawrence Taylor. I'm 12 years old at the time. What the hell do I know, Ty? And I'm telling Joe Giglio in my 8th grade English class that the Giants need to take Lawrence Taylor, which they did. And again, Joe Schoen's son knew that Jaden Daniels was the pick, and little Jack Spytek wants Ashton Genty, and little Adam Schefter wanted Lawrence Taylor. So sometimes these little kids, these little brats know a lot more than us big adults.
All right, Shefty. So that's something to keep in mind as we get closer to the draft. John Spytek might be looking for a new son if he doesn't draft Ashton Jeanty. So, stakes are pretty high in his first draft as the Raiders general manager. Let's get away from the draft a little bit and to something that's still kind of, a big mystery, I guess you could say, in the NFL right now. Let's move on to the sixth and final topic of this week's six pack. From your understanding, what is happening with Trey Hendrickson? There's been so much kind of, just I don't want to say garbage, but there's just been so much clutter and noise around this whole situation, and I don't feel like we're any closer to a resolution now than we were when it first came out that he was kind of looking for a new deal. What, to your understanding, what's going on with Trey Hendrickson?
Well, the Bengals executive vice president, Katie Blackburn, met with reporters at the Combine, and I'm going to read you a quote that she said about Trey Hendrickson, and these are her words, not mine, Ty. Quote, "I think he should be happy at certain rates that maybe he doesn't think he'd be happy at. I think some of it's on him to be happy at some point. If he's not, that's what holds it up sometimes. So, it takes him to say yes to something. And also, we have all the respect in the world for him. He's been a great player. We're happy to have him. And so maybe we'll find a way to get something to work. We're just going to see where it goes." So we have a team executive saying he should be happy with what we're offering him. But clearly, he's not. And I cannot imagine that Trey Hendrickson is going to read those quotes and be particularly happy that the Bengals feel like he should be happy with what they're offering when clearly he has not been. So they've been unable to find a trade partner. Trade partners have gone away. You've got Buffalo signing Joey Bosa. You've got Washington adding players like Javon Kinlaw and all sorts of other players on their defense. You've got teams spending money that they could have spent on Trey Hendrickson. Could there still be a team that makes a play for him? Yes. Is it stalled? Yes, right now. We'll see if the two sides can figure it out. But right now, in the state of Ohio, Trey Hendrickson, there's not a solution in sight, and that continues to go on. Anyway, all right, Ty. Thank you for leading another superb six-pack. Thank you to our great producer, Dan Stanzik, the man that puts together our video content, Ben Smith. And thank you, the listener, for tuning into another Adam Schefter podcast. Please join us again in this spot next week. We'll be back. Hopefully no more weird occurrences and hopefully more draft talk as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft in Green Bay. Until then, everybody, have a great week. Be well and stay safe.